Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nez. I like to talk about books. Today I'm going to be talking about 8 books that I was massively disappointed in my reading year last year. I did read 68 books last year, so 8 of them being disappointing is honestly a tiny proportion, and I'm really happy with my reading year last year. Just because I'm saying that these books were disappointing to me doesn't mean that they're not going to be the most amazing books to you. It also doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't like them. I was maybe just expecting a little bit more from the premise, from the plot, from the writing, from what I thought the book was going to be about. But some of them I'm probably still going to recommend to you. So let's just get cracking. I think I want to get the controversy out of the way first, just so you don't waste any more of your time on this video before deciding you may want to unsubscribe to me. So that is the first book from Blood and Ash and book 2, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. Yeah. Have I got book 3 on its way today though? Yes, my Amazon delivery driver will be bringing this to me in a few short hours. And will I be prioritising that book over all the other books on my TBR? Yeah, probably. However, these books are 3-star reads for me. While I was reading them both, I was quite disappointed. But these books, I can't explain. I think about them a lot. My enjoyment doesn't come from actually reading the book itself. My enjoyment comes from pondering a number of months later on what I've read. I can't explain it. I think my issue with these books is the writing. I feel like they're too long. I get bored when I'm reading them. There's too much dialogue for me, personally. But the underlying plot is genuinely very good. I do like the characters, but these books suffer from so much hype. So if you are planning to read these books, I would probably get your expectations in check. These are new adult novels. They are quite spicy. The plot is high fantasy, the world is high fantasy, but every now and again you get some cracking smut. The main character is called The Maiden. I realise I've started trying to describe what these books are about, and genuinely I don't know myself. I've never read a series like this where the more that I read of the books, the more I understand that what I think is happening is wrong. I don't particularly understand the world and the politics and everything else of these books extremely well, if I'm honest. So I'm just going to keep it as basic as possible. The main character is the Maiden, and what that means is that she is going to be sacrificed. And what that means is that she is, you know, she's covered, she wears a veil, she's sort of kept away from public life. People know about her because she is needed to ascend some people into like god tier, I think. Look, it's a vampire romance story, okay? The reason I was disappointed is because it's definitely a slow burn, this book, but the last 30% of the book I genuinely really loved. Last 30%, 5 stars. The rest of it definitely like more a 1 or a 2-star from me. And because it picked up so much in the last 30%, that's why I was looking forward to buying this book and reading it, because if this book was anything like the last 30% of this book, I was going to really enjoy it. But this book still suffers from a lack of plot advancement. But thankfully I'm attached to the characters enough to keep going with the series, which I plan to do, with a bottle of wine and plenty of chocolates. Next is one of the few crime novels that I read last year, and that is The Sanatorium. I actually read this in one sitting in about 6 hours. It's a quick read. Thankfully it wasn't my copy. I was staying at my grandma's house and went and had a look at her pile of books because I wanted something quick to read and found this. I was expecting a lot more from this book, if I'm honest. I was very disappointed. I was disappointed in the progression, I was disappointed in the writing, and I was disappointed in the outcome. And for crime novels, the biggest thing for me is the resolution of the crime, and does the crime make sense? Or is it just total ludicrousy? This one just didn't hit the mark for me. The cast of characters were generally quite annoying to me, and I just wanted a little bit more. The reason that I read this is because the crime is set in a hotel, which is sort of, I think it's Switzerland, and it's like a hotel that's very far detached from the town, up a mountain type place where it's like snowed in. It's a former sanatorium which has been converted into a hotel. My favourite film of all time is The Grand Budapest Hotel, so anything that sort of like gives me a little feeling of that, I'm all over it. I like the concept of it being a former sanatorium as well, and thinking, you know, how does that link in with the crime and everything. I feel like I could have done without reading this book, if that makes sense. If you like short crimes, you might enjoy this. It's definitely a worthwhile read for someone, but not for me. The next book is The Knife of Never Letting Go. I read this because I've read a lot of Patrick Ness's works and I've always really enjoyed them. So I was disappointed in this one because it didn't, for me, live up to the rest of what I expect from Patrick Ness. Honestly, this book has a phenomenal concept, but the execution and the way that it played out for me was just anticlimactic and disappointing. The main character is a boy who lives on a newly colonized world called New World. Humans have just recently settled on this planet, and what the main character is told is that all women have died in a war with the indigenous aliens of the world, who they call the Spackle. There's something to do with noise in this, but I can't remember how it works. So the main character, I believe he turns 13, and in that village it means that he's a man, and he very quickly finds out that this new world isn't all that it seems. And after an explosive start, genuinely, this book started out so promising. I was really enjoying it, but it just unfortunately went downhill. If you like old style, young adult, dystopia sci-fi, and you find it in a charity shop, probably worth your time. But when I finished it, I got rid of it and I won't be continuing on with the rest of the trilogy. In fact, I read a plot summary of book 2 and decided I'm so pleased I didn't continue. Next is The Binding. This is an adult standalone fantasy, and it's about the concept of being able to bind your memories into books in order to get rid of that memory. So if something bad happens to you, you can go to a binder, you can have that story, that memory put out onto the words of a page into a book, and you will forget that memory, but that memory will still exist in the form of writing in a book, which is protected and kept by the binder. The main character takes a job as a binder's apprentice, and when he's there he finds a book with his name on it but can't remember what the memory is that he's got rid of, and he can't even remember getting rid of the memory anyway. The thing that I enjoyed about this is the gay romance story plotline. I think my problem, which I've come to realise last year, is I don't like slow-paced books. And this was more on the slow medium side, where I actually like more fast-paced. The world is Victorian-esque. It's a little bit dark. There's a few good reveals in it, but just not enough to keep me going, unfortunately. Next was the only book that I didn't finish last year, and that is book 1 in the Zodiac Academy series. I finished this at about 40% of the way in. I just couldn't continue. It was on Prime Reading at the time, so I decided to try it on my phone, but I just really did not like the themes of this book and some of the things that were happening, some of the behaviour. There's a lot of bullying in it, there's a lot of like harassment. It made me feel very uncomfortable. It's very full on. I can deal with bully romance, but not this full on. Yeah, as a person, I just get anxiety thinking about it, if I'm honest. I did have an anxiety attack when I was reading it, and now I'm thinking about it, it just makes me feel like it was just a bad experience. I can't even say any more about the book, if I'm honest, because I'm currently pulling my hair out. Next is The Girls. This is a standalone adult contemporary about the general theme of the Manson family. I have an interest in crime and cults, so I picked this book up thinking I was gonna love it. This book was far too slow and didn't keep my interest. Generally, if you want to know what this book is about, this is a story about a young girl who gets sucked into the Manson family way. I can't actually remember if it's explicitly described as the Manson family in the book, or if it's just alluded to that. There was some good elements to it about manipulation, but it just went nowhere. I ended up skim reading parts of it. There was some chapters that were set in like a more present day where the main character was older by a few decades, but I really didn't understand what was going on. I can't even say I would recommend this book, honestly. But if anyone's read anything like about cults that they could recommend to me, please leave me a comment with the recommendation, because I need that. This sort of teased me but didn't satisfy me. Next is A Touch of Darkness. I rated this 3 stars. I did think it's a good book. I can see why it's popular on TikTok. It left me wanting. This is a Hades Persephone retelling, and I think the problem is, and I do not think it's deliberate in any way, shape and form, it's just a little bit too similar to Lore Olympus for me, in the way that like the world of Olympus works, where you've got like this modern side. My heart unfortunately doesn't have space for more books like this. If you're looking for smut, I guess it's quite good, but it's not memorable in the way that From Blood and Ash was. Like, I remember reading From Blood and Ash and literally like hiding under my duvets like, oh my god, this is so cringe. But I didn't get that from A Touch of Darkness. It is part of a series. I have no interest in continuing on with the series, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a standard good book, but for me it wasn't anything to rave about at all. Oh, and a bonus book. I know I said that I was only going to do 8 books, but I've just remembered that I did rate another book 2 stars last year, and that was Call Me By Your Name. I think my whole issue with this book, again, it comes to its pacing. It's a slow paced book. I now know that I probably need to gravitate away from slow paced books because they're not for me, but I was very bored when I was reading this. I understand the themes and the concepts and why they are good, but my personal enjoyment while reading this was I was bored. I've already read so many 5-star reads so far this year, and I'm only in January, and that's very exciting to me. I feel like finding disappointing reads is good for me because it helps me to refine my reading taste, and I spend more time reading books that I love. I've read 7 books this month and 5 of them have been 5 stars, and I purely think that now I'm just at a point where I understand what I want to read and what works for me. So thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so if you would like to watch more of my content. If you've read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I honestly just love to chat about books. Hope to see you in my next video. Take care. Bye guys.